The irony of me being here to talk to you about the significance of t-shirts while I'm not wearing a t-shirt is not lost on me, but I wanted to talk to you about it nonetheless because I've been currently working on some t-shirts, and I thought it was really important that I share with you the significance of it, because if you've been with me for a little while, you know that I've done quite a few t-shirt DIYs. And the reason for that is not only is it great at upcycling things that you currently have, but there's a lot more significance that it holds, especially for us in the 90s, you know, when I was a lot younger in the goth subculture. What that really meant was it was kind of a signal to other goths that you're legit, that you know your music, because goth being a music-based subculture, to goths back then, it was very important that you put your money where your mouth is, as in to say, I'm not here just to wear the costume and to act a fool and kind of paint all goths in a broad brush by way of misrepresenting you. I am here for the right reasons. This is the music. So the t-shirt, the band t-shirt, wasn't just a t-shirt, it symbolized so many different things. So it was a signal to other goths that, hey, you're one of them, especially if you saw one out in the wild that you didn't know, and you can kind of communicate to them that, hey, I'm one of you, and then oftentimes it resulted in a conversation at the very least, if not exchange of phone numbers, and then, you know, becoming part of the group, which was great. We loved communicating with people, and that was like a big deal, you know, being part of a circle, being part of a crew. We're very community-based. Another function that it served was it took your favorite band, it took your favorite music, and it advertised it to other people or to other goths. Say other people in the alternative community, maybe they weren't goth. However, they were dabbling in other things, because around our age, we were still trying to figure out who we are. And we're still very open to music and listening to new things, so we were very much malleable in the way that we were open. Not malleable to where you can just, like, you know, conform us to whatever you want, but we were open. We were open to hear what you have to say. We were open to hear what music that you have, or where are you going? Where's this new place? I've never heard of that before, but it's nothing that I would have ever considered going to, but let's try it out. You know, we were always very open with sharing with one another and trying different things and new things. So, you know, wearing this band t-shirt may not only signal to another goth, oh, I've never heard that band before, let me check them out, versus another person in the alternative community, like, hey, what's this person with their interesting style? What's that? Let me ask them. And you tell them, hey, it's a band. I really like them. Maybe you have your Walkman on you and you can show them the music. Now, finding it is going to be a lot harder, but again, that's why we appreciated the music that much more, because we had to work that much harder to find it. It wasn't as easy as going around to your local music store, which sometimes it did yield those results, or going onto Spotify or going onto Bandcamp or any of these places to immediately, it's like, oh, I heard of this band, let me just and listen to it. It's not as easy as that. You hear a band name, and it sometimes took you a few months to be able to hear them for the first time, which puts so much more weight and urgency on it, because you're like, no, I really need to hear this band. It becomes like a mission at this point. You got to hear this band. So when you finally heard it, man, if they sucked, it was such a buzzkill. And I've had that happen to me a few times, but honestly, I've heard things that I like more often than I haven't. What the hell is my dog doing? I know I often express the sentiment fashion does not a goth make, and that it's not first and foremost within the subculture, but a lot of people, including myself, we do have our identity somewhat, at least, based in our appearance. And regardless of if it's something like extremely fashion oriented or just a band t-shirt and some pants, that in itself, regardless, it doesn't put any less weight on which part represents your identity. You could put all your identity into a t-shirt and some regular leggings or just some straight black pants, you know, and it still be very much a part of who you are and a part of your identity. And the way that we express ourselves physically, the way we express kind of aesthetically, it doesn't have to be this elaborate thing to have meaning. And that's really what t-shirts were. And I had a lot of band t-shirts, but I never really DIY'd them because I was afraid to. I didn't have a lot of skill yet. I was very young. So the best I would do was to put safety pins through things or hang charms from them or something, because the idea of taking scissors to it, you can't undo that. So I was very careful. I remember one of my first band t-shirts, obviously it was 9 Inch Nails, you've seen that one. And then another band t-shirt, I had a lot of Skinny Puppy, and I also had Bauhaus. I wanted the white one specifically. The white, but this t-shirt. That one specifically because I loved wearing it with black PVC pants and 20 hole Doc Martens. And that was my look. Black dog collar with studs on it, and then rosary beads, my short black hair. That was my look, that was my style, and I was like all about that look. And I loved the contrast of the black and the white. I still do. And I'm happy that I'm kind of rediscovering the whole white thing again. You know, the whole goth and all white. Really beautiful. And I'm happy that I found that once again. But I was always so scared to DIY. I would use things that I knew I had to throw out anyway. When you're young and you're new to the subculture, there's always this sense of imposter syndrome. And it doesn't happen with everybody, but it isn't uncommon either. And it's something that I have experienced on many occasions, especially when I was new. And the whole concept was, am I really here for the right reasons? And do other people accept me as well? And goth being music based, back then, the Inquisition was real. Like, they would take you and interrogate sometimes, like, you know, the older pretentious ones. But for the most part, it was always a concern. Like, do people accept me and believe that I'm really part of this for the right reasons? Because when you're becoming part of a community, you want to be accepted. You want to be part of it so badly, and you want people to know that you are there for the right reasons. And never did I feel more justified when I was wearing my band t-shirts. Not only was I legitimizing myself to myself because I'm wearing this t-shirt and I know that I love this band, and I'm also presenting that to other goths. Say, no, this is a band I listen to, this is a band that I like, I am one of you, etc. Not that you need to justify yourself to anybody or prove yourself to anybody, but, you know, we're talking about young teenagers at the time, and especially people going through imposter syndrome. But there was so many things associated with the t-shirt. Like, a t-shirt wasn't just a t-shirt. Like, it meant something. And I was so afraid to damage them that I didn't dare take scissors to them. Not until much later, where I got more confident in my ability to sew, and I became more educated in the ways of like sewing and cutting and textiles and things like that. I took it in school. So I became a lot better at it. And I tried to impart that a few times if you look back on my channel. So what's really funny is I've done a bunch of DIY videos, particularly with t-shirts, to teach you kind of how you can do that for yourself. And so many people were like, wow, thanks for pointing that out, but we would rather you just make it for us. I'm teaching you, it's easy. No, it's easier than it looks. It's a lot easier than it looks. I'm gonna do a DIY at the end of this video, but what I think it's important to impart is a few tips that it is easier than it looks. Take much less than you want to. If you're gonna cut a line, cut that line at least half as deep as you really wanted to, because you could always go in and cut just a little bit more if you want, but you can't put that back on. So if you're gonna cut like you mean it, but do less to start with. Always do a little bit less and then work your way up, because that also is going to take a lot of the anxiety away. Always enter with caution. So I'm going to do another DIY with you and hopefully kind of give you a little more confidence to do this on your own, because I do have my shop where I do these things, because many people have asked me if I could just make the t-shirts instead and just sell them to you, which I don't mind doing. It's therapeutic, it's fun for me, I enjoy it, but I would rather you have that skill as well and be able to do it. And hopefully you have some t-shirts that you can practice on. If you have some that you want to throw away, maybe some friends, some family, like they got a t-shirt that they're, you know, it's on its way out, ask if you could use that, practice on it, and hopefully you'll get a little bit better and be able to do these for yourself. But until then, I'm happy to, you know, do them for you and post them on my Etsy shop and, you know, take requests, etc. But I really want to impart this skill so that hopefully you'll be able to expand the wardrobe you have now, because it's expensive just to exist. And, you know, if you have these t-shirts at your disposal, even if like a plain black one, if you just DIY and shred up a plain black t-shirt, you got a killer outfit. I've done one on that. I've done one of those. I'll put the link in the description below. I've done just a straight black shirt rather than just like a band shirt. So I'll put all of the DIYs that I've done in the description, and hopefully these can help you along and help you expand your wardrobe. But in the meantime, if you don't want to do it yourself, I will have them up in my shop. I'll put the link to my shop in the description as well. But I'm going to get to the DIY and hopefully you enjoy it. I don't know which band tee I'm going to do. We'll see. Also, I want to make sure a lot of my instruction on my DIY videos get out there. So if you engage in the comments, say at least 7 words. That's it, 7 words, and that will help push this video into the algorithm, and then more baby bats and more people who might not even be goth but just want to DIY and upcycle their wardrobe and potentially save a ton of money in the process will be able to kind of learn this skill and even build upon it, because once you get the basics of it, everything is down to you. It goes down to your own creativity. You just go nuts and have fun with it. But engage, at least 7 words. You can say, these are my 7 words, like put some emojis, I don't know. And that should push things into the algorithm, because we want to keep that DIY spirit alive, and we want to keep people informed and educated on how to do these things. And in the interim, they'll pay it forward. They'll show somebody else how to do it. And hopefully we'll all be DIYing, expressing ourselves creatively. I miss that. So let's get to the DIY. I'm going to show you how to do these shirts. We're going to be editing a Switchblade Symphony shirt for a nice upcycle. So you see these bits here. So I'm going to cut through the shoulder because I want shoulder cutouts. But when you're cutting through that, there's a big seam here. You want to make sure that you reinforce that. I'm going to go over it with a sewing machine, but you can go by hand. So one of the most important parts when you want the same exact thing done on one side to the other is you need to fold it in perfect half. That means lining up the seams. This part, when you're lining up the seams, can be a little bit meticulous, but it works out in the end. So I'm going to kind of sketch out a little bit. I'm using a black marker and you can barely see it, but just to show where I want things to cut out. Spoiler alert, all things go wrong whenever I do a DIY video. 1, I lost my sewing scissors and I have to use my kitchen scissors. 2, I cut a little bit too close to the neckline, but it deviates ever so slightly from my original because I like there to be a little bit more thickness from the neckline to as it reaches out to the shoulder. We're going to get there. We're going to get there together. So I'm lining everything up, making sure that everything is perfectly in line with one another, drawing my lines of where I want to cut. And I usually do this because I can be very meticulous, and here are my lovely kitchen scissors bought to me by my husband. They are not for cutting fabric at all. So I'm not happy with the cuts. However, not everybody has sewing scissors, so I think it probably worked out a little bit because at least you get to see, if you don't have sewing scissors, close to more of what you would be experiencing versus me with my my whole sewing kit. So I'm going to start to cut, and I'm doing a little shoulder cutout, and I want 2 cutouts specifically. I want one at the shoulder, and then I want another one by the arm. So this part, I don't know if you could see me struggle. I'm struggling, people. I'm struggling to make sure that I get this precise, and you're not getting precise with scissors that are meant to cut things like meat and dough. I mean, the last thing I cut with those scissors was kimchi, and here I am cutting a shirt. I cleaned them first, but sewing scissors are probably the best way to go because you're going to be a little bit more precise. So I need to get in, clean up. There's going to be like little bits, and starting in on the sleeve, same thing. And between these bits, and another reason why sewing scissors, or at least scissors that are more precise, are important is because I do a lot of smaller cuts. I like the little slits, and in order to do that, you need something a little less clunky. You can do it, it is possible, it's just a lot harder. So you see the neckline? Do you see the space left at the neckline? That should be much wider than it is. And that bit that I'm pointing out, these bits here, those are the ones that you're going to want to reinforce because that's sewn, but I cut through that, which means they can come undone. So in order to do that, before I ship these out, because I do make these in my shop, but before I send these out, I make sure that I reinforce that on my sewing machine so that you're not going to have to worry about it coming undone. That's kind of like a fear of mine, is having you just suddenly, your clothes start disintegrating on your body. Now, mind you, I am happy to make these things for you, but I want you to be able to make them for you yourself. So This is why I'm going to recreate this shirt in my shop in its entirety, because maybe you've seen it, maybe you like it, but maybe you also have a t-shirt that you want to recreate that design, or a switchblade shirt. I want to at least give you the confidence to be able to do that. You see how I'm struggling to fold this? Because I need to do the small, precise slits. And because I cut it so small, I'm struggling to get a proper cut. I do it. I always manage in the end, but I don't know what it is. What happens whenever I'm doing a DIY? I don't know why it happens. Things go wrong. Things go wrong. My scissors, still don't know where they are. They're always in the same spot. The fairies took them, I'm convinced. So, see what I'm doing here? I'm pulling these out. This is the most important part whenever you're doing any kind of slits or shreds in a shirt. You want to pull them out. Do not pull too tight or you are going to rip them. You want to pull them because it's going to curl the bits that you've cut. It curls them inward or it curls them outward, depending upon if it's inside out or right side in when you do that. So when you do the cuts and you pull it, it takes that kind of seam that you created, the faux seam, and it curls it in, and it just looks a lot neater and less jagged. So the next bit, you notice I cut it completely in half. That's because I want these cuts on both sides, meaning front and back of the shirt, and both sides as in right and left. So I want to cut from under the armpit, never cut on a seam, ever. Stay away from the seams. So since the side of this is seamless, I can cut along the sides, but if your shirt has a seam on it, don't do it. As you can see here, I'm going to cut from armpit all the way down to almost the bottom seam, the hem. Usually I cut less than what I need to. Now, I've been making these shirts for ages now. I know exactly how much to cut, but I'm being a lot more careful this time around. And the reason I'm being more careful is because I'm using kitchen scissors and I'm not used to these nor how they cut. And they don't grip the fabric well. In fact, they grip it too much and it almost feels like it's pulling. So a lot of extra care is needed. So I'm cutting a little bit less than I need to, and I absolutely plan on going back in and cutting more as necessary. Also part of the design, there are these little slices. I do 4. 2, 3, 4. You want to do it folded in half because it's going to do this to the back too. And I do 1, 2, 3, 4, bit of a space, and then 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you fold it again. You want to do it kind of equal apart, but you want to make sure that you stay away from the other slices that you made. Then I go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. You see how I'm folding it perfectly in half because that means it's going to happen on both sides. See that space in the middle? What you're going to do is you're going to fill that space in the middle, but next to it. You'll see what I mean. So now, where I created the gap, where I go 1, 2, 3, 4, space 1, 2, 3, 4, in that space next to it, that's when I do 4. So it almost creates like a checkerboard pattern. Does that make sense? There we go. And that's what happens when you pull them outwards. See the difference when you stretch it? Big difference. Now we have to do it to the side. So on this particular design, one side of the shirt is sliced fully down from the armpit all the way down to the hem, and the other side's exactly the same, but only one side do I weave it. So you're going to see me struggle right now. The reason I'm struggling is because now I need to separate the front of the shirt from the back of the shirt, because when you fold it perfectly in half, you're doing the same thing from the front to the back. But when you only want to do something to the front or you only want to do it to the back, you have to separate front to back. And that means it's a pain. Look at this. Always line up the shoulders. So now I'm going to be doing the same shreds that I did to the front of it. Remember where I did 4, separated, and then 4? You could see the separation here that I'm doing. And I want to do just these simple shreds through to the entire back and just keep it going. And as I work from the bottom to the top, I'm going to fold it where it looks about even, and then I'm going to slice there as well. So I'm going to keep kind of folding it like an accordion. Or remember when you used to make those paper fans? When you used to do like construction paper crafts in elementary school, it's kind of like that. those kindergarten accordion crafts where we used to make like different things, but we used to do paper fans and they used to make us accordion it. Kind of like that. You see how I folded it again? And I'm doing the very same thing. But instead I'm filling the gaps. See where that gap is there? Now I'm going to do 4 across from it. But skip the areas where I did cut on that side. Does that make sense? Again, we want to kind of make that sort of checkerboard effect. And we want to do the whole back. You're going to see a lot of flipping here because I'm very meticulous as well, and I like to make sure that everything is covered, but I also want perfect symmetry. And the key to perfect symmetry, I'm going to say this so many times because it's so important. You want to line up those seams. Make sure all of those seams are lined up, because if the seams are lined up, then everything is going to be symmetrical. If you have issues with symmetry, like you can't get things right because you're new to sewing, do it deliberately asymmetrical, like really deliberately make things off center, because then it looks like you did that on purpose. It's like, oh, it's off center. Oh, it's crooked. I did it that way. You want to make sure it's not slightly, because slightly looks like a mistake, but really crooked or really asymmetrical, that looks like it was deliberate. You did that on purpose, totally in the design plan. So again, see how I'm going in between the shreds on the other side? And I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to keep doing the same thing until I feel the back is adequately covered. I've made those slices a little bit bigger than I wanted to, again, because I'm working with big, clunky kimchi bat scissors, but they did the job. And I kept telling myself through this whole thing, maybe this was meant to be, because not everybody has sewing scissors, and you're going to work with what you have. And that's the point. The whole point is working with what we have, because where there's a will, there's a way. This is how we did things. So I'm pulling them. See how hard I'm pulling them? Don't go as aggressive as I am. The reason that I'm pulling with that much aggro is I've done this for so long. I kind of know exactly how much force I can exert before it's too much, because you will rip those. Learn from my mistakes. So it's really important that we rip all of these things. And the thing that I've slipped this shirt on, by the way, is something that really helps me quite a lot, especially with weaving. It is the lid to a giant Tupperware container. I have a lot of those massive Tupperware containers because I have a massive quantity, freakish quantity of clothes. And I need them. They're under everything. Sofas, beds, closets stacked up, storage units. I have a lot. I know I have a problem. So I'm just going to continue to show you how to kind of pull these out. And you see the difference? Okay, so now we have the cutouts. And now the only remaining part, I believe, is to really focus on the sides. I want to stretch those out appropriately. I'm going to leave one solid with just slices, and then the other, I want to weave that up. And I'm going to show you how to weave. If you need like a special sort of assistance with the weaving, because I think I probably went turbo speed on this. I'm narrating and watching in real time with you because I can't remember what I did. But sometimes when I really kind of get into that mode, I will weave turbo speed. However, I do have other videos where I am weaving and it's slowed down quite a lot. So you see here, that side, as far as weaving is concerned, the slices, they're not long enough. So if you want to create a good weave where you at least maintain the same length, or even make it more asymmetrical where it hangs a little bit lower on one side, you want those slits to be much longer than they are, because as they were, if I wove them as they were, what would have ended up happening is I would have created sort of a ruching effect, and it would have gathered and shortened up on that side, and it wouldn't look right. It would look a bit clunky, a bit frumpy, and it wouldn't be attractive. It would just look off and weird. So what I'm doing here is I'm going back in with the scissors to make sure that those slits are long enough to where I could weave them properly, because I did take a lot less than I needed to because I did not trust them kimchi scissors. So now we're going to weave. Oh no, I did go turbo time. You're going to want to reduce the speed on this, guys. I am so sorry. Look at me. Who am I? I'm not going as fast as I normally do. I'm sorry. Look how fast I'm weaving. I'm going to post links to other videos where I explain the weaving process, and it's close up, or you can just slow that part down. But do you see how the shape of the weave, it goes kind of like thin, thick, thin? That's something that you can create. You can kind of go like in a gradient. You can go big, small, 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 big, small, 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 and kind of like work your way up, work your way down, kind of like a roller coaster, up, down. And then you create these different kind of patterns, which looks really good. And once you learn how to do it, possibilities are limitless. You could basically do anything. You could do this to leggings, you could do this to dresses, things that were otherwise destined to be thrown out, no longer, because you have this skill. And once you gain more confidence in it, you can get more and more elaborate with it, which is really, really fun. We are just sewing closed the bottom stitch, because whenever you weave, you take the lowest thread, I guess you can say, not thread, you take the lowest strip of cloth and you cut it in half, and then you pull one end through and then sew it, so it creates this loop that's like solid, secure, it's not going anywhere. And I will show you the big reveal, and you can see what this bad boy looks like.